Tupac was officially spotted and recorded last week. Ever since his passing, rumors immediately surfaced that he was still alive. That was 23 years ago. Do we finally have definitive proof? Stay tuned as we reveal what we know about Tupac. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Has been making a lot of headlines over the past 24 hours after he claimed on Instagram that Tupac was still alive and living in Malaysia.
Do you want to win any of these items on the screen? If so, be sure to watch the whole video, leave a like, and comment the hidden message. And with that being said, let's get right back into the video. The passing of Tupac.
And he's looking out the window and there's absolutely no expression on his face. I knew. I just hope he wasn't afraid.
Or was it? Yet in doing so, we hit some problems because talking about the passing is actually a bit tricky. Mainly because through the loss of his life in such dramatic and brutal fashion, and yet, despite all these looks into the passing, many people still believe he is alive. That the events that transpired weren't exactly what we thought. And there are many people in the world today who have claimed to have been a part of the plot to keep him alive and make people think he was really gone. Or claim to have seen him alive in other parts of the world even. Now guys, I will not deny that it is weird when you think about it, and that's what matters. So let's show off some of the most popular and somewhat crazy or bizarre Tupac is alive conspiracy theories. Where was Tupac's body when he was buried?
A private memorial service was held for Tupac on a secluded beach in Malibu.
To be clear, there are a lot of reasons that people believe that Tupac is alive, and we won't get to all of them unfortunately. However, when it comes to the biggest conspiracy theory, it has to do with the circumstances surrounding the passing and the oddities that happened thereafter. Are you confused by what I mean? Allow me to explain. After Tupac was, quote, officially declared gone, the very next day he was cremated. A service was held soon after, and Suge Knight, a close friend of Tupac who was there when his life was taken, paid $3 million to ensure that no one could see Tupac's ashes or be allowed in without an invitation, thus keeping the quote circle of silence rather complete, if you would. Is that odd? Definitely.
In attendance were close friends and relatives, including his mother, Rafeni Shakur.
But considering the loss of life present, you wouldn't fault them for wanting very tight security and not having people do anything just to touch the late Tupac's body, right? But that's the thing. You see, on the report for the cremation, the cremator listed Tupac as being taller and heavier than he actually was. Now, you can forgive an inch or two of height, it's all relative, but the difference in weight was 53 pounds. That's quite a discrepancy. Additionally, after the service, the cremator retired and has never been seen or heard from again. That's weird, right? I mean, doesn't that seem rather odd to you guys? It definitely does to many out there. Furthermore, there was supposed to be a public viewing of the body that was meant to be used for fans to pay tribute to the singer. It was cancelled. So technically, the only people who saw Tupac's body were Suge Knight and the cremator, as well as maybe certain hospital staff, depending on how things were handled. Again, pretty weird if you ask me. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a very small set of people seeing Tupac's body and his ashes, to the extent that if you look at it objectively, only they have the quote proof of him being alive or gone. Add that to the situation with the cremator and you have enough inconsistencies to start a whole plethora of conspiracy theories, not just the one, right? Many think that the funeral was an opportunity to have the eyes of the nation in one place while Tupac left for somewhere else. Somewhere else such as Tupac is in Cuba?
Tupac, say what up, bro? Tupac! The real Machiavelli the Don.
If, and only if, Tupac is still alive, then the obvious question here is, where did he go? To be in the United States would be too dangerous, right? A lot of people knew him, and this was before the rise of the internet and smartphones where you can look up just about anyone in a blink of an eye. I do it all the time. I wouldn't doubt it if you guys do as well. So obviously, he would have to go out of the country, right? But to where? One of Tupac's friends, a rapper named Treach, was asked about where Tupac was and whether he was really gone. Treach answered without blinking an eye. Last time I saw him, he was in Cuba, man. Treach said that in 2010, almost 15 years after Tupac passed. So why would he say that? And just as important, why would he say that without hesitation? Is it because he knew something that we didn't? Sure. I know a lot of people say that they'll flee to Cuba one day, but why would Tupac take that step? It's actually very simple. He knew someone there. You see, Tupac had an aunt named Assata Shakur. She was a part of the Black Liberation Army, which I'll note later was a big influence in his family and life, and was charged with a felony. But her BLA members broke her out of jail and smuggled her into Cuba, where she is now there under the law of political asylum, meaning the United States can't extradite her back to the country. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? She's been there since 1984, 12 years before her nephew's passing. So if Tupac wanted to get out of the country, there's a good chance that his aunt knew of a way to get into Cuba without prying eyes, especially if those same eyes were focused on a passing and not a runaway. As a magician would say, it's all about the misdirection. Point the audience one way while you're doing something in the other. The Cuba theory is honestly one of the most pervasive conspiracy theories behind Tupac's passing, mainly because it honestly does have evidence behind it. What's more, there have been testimonies and even pictures saying that Tupac is in Cuba. One picture even had him at a bar with singer Rihanna. If the picture was true, and many think that it isn't, this proves that more people know that he's alive than we think if the picture was true, and many think it isn't. After all, photoshopped pictures are easy to do nowadays. But again, it is a theory that lives on with each passing year, and if he did flee to the country, he would likely want to stay somewhere that he felt he could feel safe, yet also feel that his friends and potentially family could go and visit him without being called into question. Cuba certainly qualifies. Tupac's music.
We'd all like to officially welcome Tupac Shakur into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
To wrap up, there was an oddity that came with Tupac's passing that many people were curious about, mainly when it came to his posthumous album releases. There were quite a bit of them. Granted, there are always lost tracks in music that never got released when a rapper passes suddenly. We saw that recently with XXXTentacion. However, when it came to Tupac, he had full albums worth of product that came out many years after his passing. How does that work? On one hand, you could argue that like many musicians, including the late Michael Jackson, they made tons of music on their own, complete with notes and music sheets, and then for one reason or another, never released it, thus making it what you guys might call a treasure of sorts. But to conspiracy theorists, they believe that this is proof Tupac is alive because there's no way that many songs came out when he was gone that he had around when he was alive. Furthermore, certain songs seem to tease that he was getting ready to pass on and that he would see people at a later date. A clue of what he was planning or a lyric in the story. You guys decide. The early life of Tupac.
My name is Tupac Shakur and I attend Tamalpais High School and I'm 17 years old.
And the conspiracy surrounding his passing, it's very important to talk about what Tupac was, as his time both as a man and as a rapper has been chronicled many times over the years, and there was a very good reason for that. Despite being known for his love of the West Coast, specifically California, Tupac Shakur was actually born in New York City in 1971. What's more, his birth name was actually Lassane Parish Crooks, quite a ways away from Tupac, but rarely do rappers start out with their stage names being given to them at birth. Anyway, his parents actually changed his name to Tupac Amor II, which was a name derived from a Peruvian revolutionary, believe it or not. Now, his parents were huge influencers in his life, even before he was born, as both of his parents were part of the Black Panther Party, and each had been charged and acquitted of various crimes over the years. And just as important, many of the people that Tupac knew were part of the Black Liberation Army, a group fighting for equal rights of African Americans. So you could say he was raised to try and break the status quo of the world. Eventually, Tupac went on his first of many moves, the first of which was to Baltimore, Maryland. It was here that Tupac started to learn about music and poetry and became quite enamored with it. He even took up acting while in high school there. When he started to put his talents towards rapping with his friends, he actually won a lot of awards and competitions. So as you can see, poetry and the art of music was a big part of his life growing up. But what might be the most interesting thing is that despite his soon-to-be controversial nature, Tupac was well liked by just about everyone at his school. He was touted as being funny, kind, talented, and able to mix with all groups, including being good friends with the future wife of Will Smith, Jada Pinkett, who Tupac noted many times was his friend for life. Eventually, his family moved to Marin City, California, which is only a few miles away from San Francisco. He finished high school there and continued his love of both music and poetry, even writing once, "Our raps, not the sorry story raps everyone is so tired of. They're about what happens in the real world. Our goal is to have people relate to our raps, making it easier to see what really is happening out there. Even more important, what we may do to better our world." Something that would inspire many rappers to come, including ones he'd never get to meet. Tupac had a way with words, and that led him to success and made him the legend he is now. Rise in rap. You may think that based on his fame, that Tupac was on top and stayed there until he passed, but that wasn't the case. He actually started rapping back in 1988, but it wasn't until a few years later that he got his first big break by signing with the group Digital Underground, a group that made not just music, but also did movies, as well including the 1991 film Nothing But Trouble, which Tupac was also in, as a small part, but truly, he was a man of many talents. Now, after working with them for a while, Tupac went out on his own album, Tupacalypse Now. On one hand, the album didn't get a lot of sales, nor were any of its songs hits in terms of chart hitters. However, because of the style and the underground vibe that Tupacalypse Now portrayed, many rappers were inspired by it, including many of the future legends that you now know, like Eminem and Nas, who cited it in talking about their early works. Ironically enough, the rights to his album are now with Tupac's mother, who owns her own record label in Amaru Entertainment. But what might be the biggest impact of this first album, though, was that Tupac went and used his songs to try and show off the social injustice going on in the United States at the time, especially in California. which would be fuel for legendary rap group NWA. It actually went on to garner so much controversy that even the Vice President of the United States at the time, Dan Quayle, spoke out on it, saying that an album like this shouldn't be released, which wouldn't be the first time the government has tried to suppress music that they didn't agree with. Again, I'm sure you can see a slight mirror to NWA. But Tupac did not hold back at the criticism thrown his way. He noted that he was just singing about what he had been through and seen. I started out saying I was down for the young black male, you know, and that was gonna be my thing. I just wanted to rap about things that affected young black males. When I said that, I didn't know I was gonna tie myself down to just take all the blunts and hits for all the young black males, to be the media's kicking post for young black males. I just figured since I lived that life, I could do that. I could rap about that. No matter the results of the first album, Tupac had all the fuel he needed for his next album, which came out in 1993, and proved that he was here to stay, even having his album debuted at number 24 on the Billboard Top 200. Many rap historians even say that this was the album that helped Tupac break out into the mainstream and started to become the legend that everyone knew. Tupac, the legend.
Much more than you probably think. I'm not talking about Pac the rapper. I'm not talking about Tupac the actor. I'm talking about Tupac the human being.
After getting the hits that he needed and the publicity via the events previously mentioned, Tupac fortunately branched out and actually started a group called Thug Life, where they did, quote, gangster rap, a rap that was even more vocal, even more hardcore, and even more unapologetic, to the extent that many songs had to be re-recorded at the request of Interscope Records, their label at the time, because they were too controversial. And though as a group they released only one album, it did go gold, which isn't too bad, and it had many songs that are still considered hits. But for Tupac, he was still only getting started, and his third album, Me Against the World, is widely considered not only one of the best compilations ever, but also one of the most influential hip-hop albums of all time. The album won many awards and has actually sold over 300 million units in its lifetime. Add that to many singles that went onto the Billboard Top 100 charts, and guys, it's easy to see why many people liked it. His fourth album was the iconic All Eyez on Me. It was his best album in terms of sales and recognition yet. It went 9 times platinum and had 2 #1 songs known as How Do You Want It and California Love. The album sold over 5 million copies before the 90s were even over, and by that time Tupac Shakur was a mainstream name in rap, and many people considered him a legend. His final album that he would release during his life was a bit of an odd one, as it was The 7 Day Theory, and he actually released it under a new name, Machiavelli. The intent of the record, according to those who knew him, was that it was meant to be a solely underground record, not one released from any distributors, but it was anyway, and it was a big hit, and by 1999, it was a 4-time platinum hit. Many people noted the raw power and emotion that Tupac exerted in the songs of the album. Now sadly, as we most know, that was the end of his release, because in 1996, his life was unfortunately, and there you have it, some looks at Tupac and the conspiracies surrounding his passing. Where do you stand in regards to the Tupac conspiracies? Do you believe them, or do you agree that he is gone? Has it been long enough that maybe it's time we should all let it go? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time on King Trending.
A simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad Mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's really your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. Go for it.